Take that, Putin! Take that! My Azovs will kill you! You put them there, and all the Putin troops are dead, Daddy! This is how you win the war! This is how you win! You get me? Watch and learn, Daddy! Then you put your Azovs there, and you win! Good, son.
What happened to these two
What
guys
about
under the
my
tissue?
Azov troops? What happened to them?
Not looking too good.
That's Private Jenkins and Private Kenny. They got killed. Private Jenkins has a baby girl that was born 7 pounds 6 ounces. He's never seen her. He wanted to get back to Bluebell, Pennsylvania and hold her. Private Kenny's wife is mighty sick. She has something called a brain aneurysm.
You mean an aneurysm?
Private Kenny needed to get back safe and take care of her. Except they died instead. Don't look at me. I don't like when people look at me like that. Stop looking at me.
Tell me, son, have you been taking my white powder I left on the table? Tell me the truth. Oh my God.
Is it okay if I look back now, Cole? Tap once for no and twice for yes if you want.
I'm here to take you through some of the news articles today. Sorry to show you that clip of Sixth Sense in the beginning. It just completely reminded me of 9-year-old son of Zelensky giving his father advice on military matters. And those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Zelensky's wife has confirmed that Zelensky has been taking military advice from his son, from his 9-year-old son. And no wonder the Ukrainian army is a shambles, and no wonder so many of them are dying. So it's a shame if that's really happening. It's a real shame. Anyway, I want to talk about Boris in the beginning. Boris actually turned up on the Queen's Jubilee, and he turned up outside St. Paul's Cathedral. And it's absolutely ridiculous as the crowd actually booed Boris to death. There were so many people booing. And it's all over the British papers, it's all over the news, how Boris was getting booed. It was absolutely hilarious, guys, and I was just laughing my head off when I saw it. He was walking with his wife. His wife looked really embarrassed as well. And Boris was walking along like he didn't have a care in the world. He was like, walking like he's a bad boy. And I just found it absolutely hilarious. And if people don't get rid of him soon, the Tories are going to lose the election really badly. And this guy is bringing the country down. And it's good. It shows us there are people out there who are wise enough to know what this guy is doing to the country and how this guy is destroying the country. He cares more about Ukrainians than he cares about British people. And I just hope this is a wake-up call to the rest of the government, and somehow they just get rid of him. I don't know how, but they should get rid of him. But to be honest, there really isn't any good replacements. If they get rid of him, they'll probably put somebody like Liz Truss in there, who's even worse. So I'm not really sure really what the best solution is. There really isn't anyone in power in UK who can lead the country. The only person I really respect, who I want the country to be led by, is George Galloway, but I know people are not going to allow that. He was an MP once upon a time. The powers in UK are not going to allow anybody like that to be in power. So it's a shame. The people who actually would do good for the country would never be in power because of the powers behind the scenes. And I'm talking about, there are lobbyist groups, there are people from America that have a lot of say in who becomes the next prime minister. So it's a shame, really. It's a real shame. So let's move on. So Macron has recently come out and said, do not humiliate Russia, because he wants Russia and Ukraine to sit at the negotiation table, come up with the peace talks. So the fact that he says don't humiliate Russia, he's been absolutely grilled by the Ukrainians. He's also been grilled by the British media. He's also been grilled by the US media as well. And you can see here, Ukraine's foreign minister hit out at French President Emmanuel Macron after it said that his vital was Russia was not humiliated over its invasion. So you can see how the West is changing their tune now, and especially leaders like Macron. He's looking at what's happening around the world. He's looking at how the ruble is strengthening, the EU is starting to go down, and EU needs to look at basically a peace deal, because if things continue as they are, you are looking at EU going back into the dark ages, and Russia's not going to be supplying gas or oil to the EU, and you can see EU really, really suffering when it comes to winter. So Macron is obviously starting to kind of change his tune, starting to kind of be more friendlier towards Russia and Putin, and he obviously wants a peace deal. He wants to get all of this over and done with, because nobody wants to see this war ongoing, and it's going to be bad for Ukraine. It's also going to be really, really bad for Europe, and Macron sees that. Unfortunately, the rest of the EU doesn't seem to go along with this tune, apart from obviously Orban from Hungary. But we will see how this develops. Obviously, you can see a big change in how leaders are looking at the Ukraine issue at the moment, and especially the public. The public are completely bored of it. They're not even interested in what's happening in Ukraine anymore. They have more urgent issues. They have cost of living crisis to think about and other things to think about. So they don't really care about what's happening in Ukraine, to be honest. And I think Macron is one of the first leaders who is actually trying to change his tune and trying to see what can be salvaged from whatever's happened so far. So Russia threatens to strike the West if Ukraine hits it with US rockets. So as you know, Biden has sent US rockets to Ukraine. Ukraine gave assurances apparently that they're not going to strike Russia. However, they did come up with a statement saying that Crimea is not part of Russia, so they might strike Crimea. And obviously Russia's not very happy about it. So if these rockets do strike Crimea and do strike Russian cities, I really, really think that this could escalate really, really badly. And it could drag the West, it could drag NATO, and it could drag the USA into a war that they do not want. They really do not want to fight the Russians, because things will escalate very badly. And it's not going to be good for themselves either. It's not going to be good for Europe, it's not going to be good for NATO, and it's not going to be good for USA if they start a war with Russia. Things will escalate very fast, and it could even head to nuclear war. So let's hope this does not happen. The US is only sending about 4 long-range weapons, I believe. And as you know, a lot of these weapons get destroyed on their way to the front line. Probably half of them get destroyed on the way to the front line because the infrastructure is not there. They can't really send it by rail, because rail infrastructure is destroyed. They can't send it by air. So the only way to do it is by road. And these will be picked out by satellite very, very easily, especially when you're carrying them in massive trucks and massive lorries. And the Russians will look at that with the satellite images, and any large lorries traveling through Ukraine long distances, they know there's going to be weapons in there, so they would be taken out very, very quickly. So good luck to Ukraine to see if they can actually take this to the front line. But even if they do somehow, and they do attack Russian cities, it's going to be really, really bad news for them, and they will be there will be huge escalations in this war if that happens. There is a lot of bad news for the German economy and also very bad news for the German people. And you can see here, half the population can no longer afford their former lifestyles. Nearly half of the German citizens cannot maintain their former lifestyles amid record inflation, Bloomberg has reported on Friday. And you can see here, this is really bad news for the German people and the economy. And it's going to get worse, guys. It's going to get much, much worse as the inflation is rising higher. All of these embargoes and all of these sanctions they put on Russia will start to hit over the next few months, and especially before winter. And when it comes to winter, things will be really, really bad. You will see gas prices, oil prices going through the roof. A lot of Germans won't be able to afford it. Same thing's happening in UK and other places in Europe as well. And Germany is very much dependent on oil and gas because Germany's main energy is gas. They have got rid of most of their nuclear plants. They don't really use much coal. So gas is the main way of them powering up the country. So I can really see Germans really suffering over the next few months, and it could get worse by the winter. So we will see how that progresses. If things weren't bad enough for Germany, they are now destroying their trade relationship with China. As you can see from this title, Germany politicizing trade issues brings risks to the economic ties with China. So the new government, Scholz and Baerbock and all of these green guys, have completely gone towards the United States, towards their master. They are destroying their own economy. They are placing all of these sanctions which are shooting themselves in the foot. Not only that, they're also destroying their relationships with China as well. China is their biggest trade partner, and a lot of German businesses make a lot of money in China. We're talking about car companies and many great German companies, and there's a lot of them. You know, there's a lot of high technology German companies. They make a very, very good profit in China. So don't take my word for it. As you can see from this article, as painful as costly as Germans wake up to its energy dependence on Russia was, German economic ties with China are far tighter and more intensive. For example, one of their major companies, Volkswagen, they are basically tightening down on Volkswagen, and because Volkswagen has factories in Xinjiang, they are accusing China of forced labor and stuff like that. But the Volkswagen CEO has actually come to the defense of China. He said that there is no forced labor happening. It's all made up by the USA. And this is confirmed by the UN human rights expert who actually went to Xinjiang just very recently. And she's found no evidence of forced labor as well. No evidence of genocide. And all of these claims are basically lies made up by the US just because they want to kind of push China down, trying to basically get these companies not working in China, especially in the Xinjiang area. And it's basically for geopolitics. They're just making these ridiculous claims up. So the CEO of Volkswagen has actually come up and said there is no forced labor, there is no genocide happening in Xinjiang. But the German government is actually not listening. They are basically following the US line, pretty much following the US blindly. They are affecting not only their own economy but their future as well. So I'm going to go back to this article, and one of the things that this article also mentions is Germany's goal of phasing out fossil fuels. So they're trying to phase out fossil fuels because of Russia, but to do that they need to add more solar panels, and you can see they're trying to add more solar panels. And one of the most important commodities in solar panels is polysilicon, and 40% of it is made in China. So if they basically, if they have issues with human rights with China and they stop buying goods from China, especially from Xinjiang, and 40% of polysilicon comes from Xinjiang, so they're going to basically shoot themselves in the foot again. So they can't get fossil fuels from Russia, and they can't get polysilicon from China. So pretty much Germany will be stuffed, following the Americans blindly, really. And I just feel really bad for this government, how they have literally destroyed years and years of development, and they're just going to destroy their manufacturing. They're going to destroy years of industry, and they've burnt all their bridges with Russia, and looks like they're going to be doing the same with China as well. I just feel bad for the German people. I just don't think they signed up for this. You got this New York Post saying Russia's suffering huge losses, losing ground in Severodonetsk official. This is completely not true. Completely not true, guys, and I'll show you why. So this is the Ministry of Defense coming from Russia, and you can see what they're saying. Ukrainian armed forces are retreating towards Lysychansk. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. Apologies for that. After suffering critical losses up to 90% in various units during the combats for Severodonetsk. Realizing the impossibility to continue resisting the holding the industrial area of Severodonetsk, the authorities in Kiev have ordered the Combined Tactical Group to plant saltpeter and nitric acid tanks of volume above 100 tons at Azot entity located in Severodonetsk. According to the plan of Kiev regime, the explosion of these toxic chemical reservoirs is delaying the offensive of the Russian armed forces by creating chemically contaminated area. Ukrainian nationalists are not deterred by the fact that this terrorist act involves toxic chemicals that can result causing victims amongst innocent civilians, as it already happened to the residents of Kremenaya and Ruzebeshoye, after the nationalist exploded nitric acid reservoir at the same plant on May 31st, 2022. So it sounds to me that the Ukrainian army is actually retreating, and while they're retreating, they are exploding these chemical nitric acid tanks, which is slowing the Russian advance. And this is why, I mean, there's images of these nitric acid, this yellow gas all over Severodonetsk, and this is because the Ukrainian forces are retreating and blowing these up. So this is why the Russian forces are slowing down, and this is what the Western papers are reporting, saying, Russian forces are losing heavily and they're slowing down their advance, which is completely not true. And I pretty much believe the Russian side of events, really, because you just got to look at how the guys in Kiev are being surrounded, they're being air bombed, and so many are dying per day. I mean, you could look at the Ministry of Defense report. So you can see here, foreign trainers who have arrived in a center held by practical exercises related to using and firing M77 howitzers, in addition to missile attack that has resulting in destroying a permanent base of mercenaries near Odessa region. Moreover, 27 areas of Ukrainian manpower and military equipment concentrations posts were destroyed. And here you see, in total, this resulted in the elimination of more than 400 nationalists, 20 tanks and armored vehicles, 4 Grad missiles launchers, 9 artillery mounts, 29 miscellaneous vehicles. So you can see how much Ukrainian soldiers are dying. And this is from this morning. I'll show you the day before, which is just as bad, really. And the day before, it says attacks have resulted in an elimination of more than 360 nationals and 49 weapons and military equipment, including 1 detection of airspace control radar station and 13 Ukrainian tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, anti-aircraft missile systems. So you can see they're absolutely being destroyed. And they're not just being bombed from the air, they're also being bombed using Russian rockets. Russians are using artillery. They have been surrounded, they have been absolutely killed. So more than 360 nationalists and 9 weapons systems. So you can say about 360 to 400 per day dying. And apparently yesterday about 1,000 Ukrainians had surrendered as well. There's videos of 1,000 Ukrainians surrendering. So you see, this article is completely fake, it's completely wrong. These guys have no idea about what's happening in the war, and I just do not believe it. They're still covering this fake news saying Russia's winning, Ukraine is losing. There are papers out there who have stopped reporting this stuff, but there are still loads of papers which are reporting all of this fake news. And sooner or later, all of the papers will stop reporting all of this fake news, and they'll realize everything that they've reported is all lies, it's all fake, and people have stopped believing in them, and they're just going to lose all of the credibility, all of it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to talk a bit about China now. China is also my speciality as well, so I'm going to talk a bit about China. And so this is really good news. Shanghai is back to full swing again after it's been locked down for the last few months. And I can see, I've seen a lot of YouTube channels, I've seen a lot of news channels and articles, CGT, and I can see how happy people are in Shanghai, that they're allowed to move around now. They can go to bars, restaurants, and shopping. And I can see China becoming pushing really, really hard over the next few months. And if you remember the last lockdown that China had in Wuhan, and China has really, really suffered really badly in terms of economy. But they bounced back within a month. This is the will of the Chinese people. They bounced back. They fought hard. And they did a complete U-turn. And it's a V-shaped economy at the time. And what it means with the V-shaped, things went down. But within a month, things were back to normal again. And in fact, China was doing much better than normal. Because people in China, they have a very, very strong drive. They want to do well, they want to be successful, and the fact that it's been holding them back over the past few months, it will give them a lot of, they will have a lot of pent up anger within them. They want to release it, they will go out, they will have fun, they will spend money, they will push themselves in their businesses. I'm sure there's a big waiting list of stuff they need to do in terms of business, and they will push themselves even more. And I think this will drive China's economy over the next quarter, and things will be really, really well. China will do really well. The West is not doing very well at the moment because of the high cost of living, because of the high oil prices, because of the EU's stupid ban on Russian oil and gas as well. EU will have a lot of problems. Their manufacturing will be destroyed. If you look at UK has got zero manufacturing at the moment because of Brexit, because of COVID, because of all these ridiculous sanctions they placed on Russia. UK is really, really suffering right now. Their cost of living is through the roof. Inflation is through the roof. So if you're a business and you're in UK and you're in Europe, you are going to be suffering the next few months. So people are going to be wanting to save money. They're going to be wanting to save costs. And the most cost-effective way of buying stuff is from China. So you will see a lot of companies still buying stuff from China. Because of the China lockdowns, I'm sure there's a lot of companies who have been waiting for goods from China, and it has drove up prices. So things will go back to normal. You will see a lot of orders. Because you can't beat the price of China. When you're suffering from inflation and high cost of living, you want to save every penny you can get. So you look at Chinese goods and you can buy it for really, really cheap price, including the transport. It still ends up cheaper than making it at home, because when you make it at home, you got to think about paying high wages. You got to think about paying high rents. You got to pay for really expensive raw materials, and most of the times you got to ship these raw materials from China. So by the time you make it at home, I'm talking about the West, you'll find that things are 2 times or 3 times more expensive. It's much easier to buy it from China. And you can see United States, their trade balance is minus 1.182 trillion last year, Look at United Kingdom is minus 226 billion in terms of trade balances. So they have been importing close to 3 trillion worth of goods and exporting 1.7 trillion worth of goods. Britain, you can see, is even worse. They have exported 468 billion and importing 694 billion last year. And obviously this year is going to be even worse because of all the supply chains, because of all the high gas prices and many other things. And you look at most of the other countries around Europe as well, it's pretty much the same. So let's go to China, shall we? And you can see China exported 3.363 trillion and imported 2.687 trillion. So they have made a gain of 676 billion last year. And this year is probably going to be even better, apart from the last few months. But I think overall, by the end of the year, they will pretty much beat this. So their trade surplus is looking really good. China's looking really good. If you look at India, for example, India likes to think of itself like a superpower. And if you look at India's exports, it's 395 and imports is 572. So the trade balance is minus 177. So India's not, people think India's a superpower, but I think India's going to be really, really struggling. Very low compared to the dollar, is very low compared to the Chinese yuan, very low compared to the Russian ruble. So as India imports more than it exports, India will really, really suffer, especially they have a huge number of people, so they need to be able to feed these people, and so I think India is suffering, especially this year. There's a heat wave going on in India, and this heat wave started around March. This is really affecting India's productivity. Their wheat production is not as well as they did last year because of the extra heat. They have not been producing enough wheat. So India is really going to be suffering over the next few years, especially as oil prices rises up more and more. And India is a huge importer of oil and gas, so they are going to be suffering. And you have to look at other countries as well. And I think, people don't realize how much money China makes from trade. And China is in a very, very good position in trade, because as the Western countries have more inflation, as the Western countries suffer with cost of living crisis, people will want to get cheaper goods. And the only way they can get cheaper goods for the same quality or even better quality is from China. It's much cheaper to get it from China, and this basically controls your inflation. If America or Britain start manufacturing all of the goods that they buy from China, you will see inflation shooting up even more. For example, if they start making, I'm just giving an example, to make a car in Britain, for example, it'll be probably 2 or 3 times more expensive than buying it from China. And I'm talking about electric cars. And even manufacturing of cars in England, they are going down. Britain used to be a very, very good manufacturer of cars, and it used to be Britain's biggest export. Cars used to be Britain's biggest export, but not anymore. The car industry in Britain is a shambles at the moment. Most of the factories have moved abroad, or they've moved to Europe, or they've moved somewhere in Asia. So Britain is really, really suffering in terms of manufacturing. And if they wanted to make an EV car, for example, they will not be able to do it in Britain. First of all, you need a lot of raw materials. You need lithium and all sorts of cobalt and many other raw materials. And China is the number one country which has that supply chain. So you're going to have to get it all the way from China. Then you're going to have to build these gigafactories in UK. And these gigafactories to build in UK with the high cost and high home prices, it will cost maybe 10 times more expensive than it would be to build in Shanghai, for example. Tesla's got one in Shanghai and they're building another one in Shanghai. Tesla would never ever build one in England because they know it's not cost effective. And, it's very, very expensive, the land here. And also you've got to pay people high wages as well. So definitely won't be very, very cost effective. So a lot of these countries will start buying from China again. They obviously stopped buying because of China was in lockdown, but now that lockdown's over, you will see a big queue of stuff um, that what they wanted to buy from China. That will start going through again, and also a lot of foreigners probably left China during lockdown as well. A lot of businesses probably left China during lockdown. They will come back to China. They will always come back to China because there's no other place better. There's no other place in the world that's going to be making you lots of money. China has all the supply chains. It's got everything it needs. It's got cheap labor. It's got supply chains, and it's got the market. 1.4 billion people, especially with 500 billion people coming out of poverty. So you have a huge, huge middle class there. So people that say, oh, because of lockdowns we're leaving China, where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go? Nowhere. They're all gonna come back. They're all gonna come back. So China's lockdown has not been very good for the economy. There is also a slowdown with the rest of the world, especially with the inflation, the cost of living, the supply chains, and the cost of raw materials. So everybody in the world is being affected, including China. So China's been obviously having the lockdown, so the last few months have not been going very well for China. So one of the things they've announced is a major infrastructure boost. And during 2008, when the last financial crisis, China actually did a huge infrastructure boost at the time, and they built all of these highways, railway lines, and high-speed railways, and lots of infrastructure stuff. And actually that helped them become what it is today, and it helped them avoid the financial crisis. And looks like they're going to be doing the same thing again. They have also announced they will be doing a lot of work on the renewable sector as well, and they're going to have a third of the electricity which will come from renewables by 2025. So that's in about just under 3 years. So they're going to be doing a lot of renewable stuff. They're going to be doing a lot of infrastructure over the next few years. So they're going to be spending a lot of money, and hopefully they will be able to avoid this slump, and it will help them in the future, because one of the things a growing economy needs is infrastructure, because the better the infrastructure is, you can move goods around. If goods take too long between one and two cities, then obviously that costs money, because the cost of goods become more and more expensive. But if you can shorten that distance, if you can shorten that time between two cities, they will be able to trade, they will be able to move things around, and the economy gets a boost as a result. So having high-speed rails, having a really good infrastructure, having very good roads between cities is only going to help China's financial economic stats, and it's just going to help their GDP, and it's good for their future. I mean, if they can get that done, and especially renewables, you can see renewables are going to be the next major thing. And during the World Economic Forum, you can see all of these massive CEOs of massive companies, and they were all talking about how renewables is going to be the next big thing, and the whole world is going to be moving towards renewables to avoid climate catastrophe. They were also talking that it's going to take about 50 trillion to move into renewables, and they were talking about how the private and the public sector will put their money in, which means the taxpayers will have to also foot the bill. So there's going to be a big reset coming in. There's going to be a big push for renewables, and looks like China's going to be leading the way. But we will see over the next few years what happens. As you know, with electric cars, EVs, you need a lot more charging points, and these cars need to be charged. So the world would need a lot more power and a lot more energy, and China is kind of leading the way with the amount of energy that it uses. It's also the factory of the world, so it's got to power up all of these factories. It's going to sell its good all around the world. And to power up these factories obviously takes a lot of power. China also uses a lot of coal, but they will be phasing out this coal over the next few years. There's 3 pipelines coming in from Russia for gas. There's other pipelines coming in as well from, I think, from Turkmenistan and a few other places, and they're also talking about getting gas from Iran as well. So there's a lot of gas coming into China over the next few years. They will be phasing out coal slowly. They will be putting more and more renewable energies in there. They're also going to be adding more hydroelectric power plants as well. I made a separate video about this. I'll give you the link on the description so you can see what China is doing in terms of moving into renewables over the next few years. So we're coming to the end of the video, and we're going to talk about some of the funniest stories of the world and some of the Idiot of the Day awards as well. And I saw this article and I just laughed really. It says China must destroy Elon Musk satellites with hard kill weapon. So the reason China has said this, because if you know that, if you remember the Mariupol siege, and even though that Russia had basically stopped all of the internet in Mariupol, and all of these Azovs will still manage to send these video outs via feeds and update their telegrams and send all of these. They had access to internet, and people were asking how the hell are they doing that. Well, Elon Musk is the answer. So basically they are using Elon Musk satellites to basically communicate with each other, and this is a huge security issue basically, and Russia has not been able to counter it, and Elon Musk has been online and being very cocky. He's basically being really cocky, and he's not been a very nice person towards the Russians. So the Chinese believe that he will probably do the same thing when it comes to Taiwan, because if there's a war that breaks out between Taiwan and China will make sure all satellite links in Taiwan will be severed, and nobody will have access to internet, because they don't want information to be spread out basically. So they're worried that Elon Musk satellites will basically still carry on running in Taiwan, and people will use that. And if you have satellites running over a country, you can use it as GPS, you can use it to guide rockets, you can use it to send out propaganda. There's a lot of things you can do if you have internet. So obviously China will want to avoid that. So this is why China's looking to destroy Elon Musk satellites. They're not going to destroy it with weapons or anything like that, because China's got a lot of satellites up in space as well, and they've also got a space station. So they can't destroy these satellites. So because if you destroy them, they're going to be blown up in millions of pieces, and these millions of pieces will be dangerous. And China's got a lot of satellites out there. They don't want to destroy their own satellites by doing that. So they're looking at basically some sort of a weapon that will take them out. I'm talking about EMP weapon, or some sort of jamming weapon that will stop these satellites from communicating with Earth. And I think that's what they're looking at, a hard kill weapon which will basically render them all useless. So they have seen what's happening with Ukraine. China is actually learning from a lot of lessons from Ukraine. They are actually watching from a distance. They are seeing what works, what doesn't work. And if it comes to Taiwan, China will be able to do it their own way. They do learn a lot. They have also been looking at stuff like the Iraq War, for example. So China has been taking notes, and they will basically look at all of the wars that's been happening over the past, few decades, and if it ever comes to a war over the Taiwanese Strait and a war over Taiwan, then they will do it their own way based on what they know and what they've learned. So one of the Idiot of the Day awards goes to Ukraine, and Ukraine was playing football with Scotland, and I just found it absolutely ridiculous because all of the Scotland fans started booing Ukraine. And I just found it so funny because all of the papers were talking about how if Ukraine wins, it wouldn't matter too much, and it doesn't really matter to the Scottish people. But when it comes to football, you don't want to mess about with Scottish football. No, they don't care about what's happening in Ukraine. They care about what happens on the pitch. And they care about Scotland. So all of the Ukrainian players were pretty much shocked when they got booed. All of the Ukrainian fans were pretty much shocked when they got booed by the Scottish. But one thing's for sure, you don't mess about. You don't come in between Scotland and their football. They don't mess about when it comes to football. And the Ukrainians thought they could just walk past this. They will get clapped. These Scottish fans would, love them. Blah blah blah. They have got enough privilege in the world now, and people don't really care much about what happens in Ukraine anymore. The only thing they care about is the cost of living, and they also care about football as well. So the Ukrainians who thought that they're going to be greeted with open arms in a Scottish football match, they got absolutely shocked to hear all the boos that the Scottish players gave to the Ukraine. So I just found it absolutely hilarious. So the other idiot of the day goes to this trader. So this trader, who was working from home, managed to wipe out 300 billions in stock after adding an extra zero in one of his trading whatever you not. And basically, do you remember the times when I think there was a film made about it with Leonardo DiCaprio, but there's basically rogue traders over the years in the 80s and 90s who've actually caused the financial crash, and have caused a huge financial issue in the Wall Street and things like that. Well, it looks like it's happening again. So some trader, he was allowed to work from home, and he managed to wipe out 300 billion in stocks. So they're investigating at the moment, and a lot of people are saying, the revelation is likely to raise questions about banks allowing traders to work remotely and whether controls and checks are in place are adequate. So this goes to show you got people working from home, especially traders and stuff like that. There are some jobs you cannot work from home. You need total concentration. And sometimes I work from home as well, and I can see the difference when I'm working in the office and when I'm working at home. When you're at home, you don't have as much concentration. You're not exactly in work mode. You kind of take it easy. You're a lot more relaxed. When I'm at work, obviously, you actually work harder. You're in a work environment. You have other colleagues there if you need any help. But when you're at home, you do actually take it easy. You become quite lazy, to be honest. I really don't like working from home. I'd rather be at the office. I'm a workaholic. I love being in the office and stuff. But I can imagine how it feels like when you do work from home. You actually do get lazy. So some people like traders, doctors, things like that, they shouldn't be allowed to work from home. I think some things you have to be at the office. You have to basically have that 100% focus and 100% concentration. You can't be relaxed in certain jobs. And this guy is basically could cause the next financial crisis. So I'm not sure how they're going to get this money back. Probably not. And I don't know what the impact is going to cause, but we'll probably find out in the next few days. So the final Idiot of the Day award goes to this article, Canada. Canada says China is harassing its aircraft near North Korea. So, Canadian military has accused China's warplanes of harassing its pilots during United Nations sanctions patrols along the border with North Korea to monitor evasions. And it says, Canadian Armed Forces said in a statement that Chinese planes have flown so close they have forced Canadian pilots to quickly change course to avoid potential collision with the interception of the aircraft. And then at the bottom it says here, these interactions are unprofessional and put the safety of our Royal Canadian Air Force personnel at risk. Can you believe this crap? So let me tell you this. The last time I checked North Korean borders, it's not just North Korean borders, these are Chinese borders as well, because North Korean borders are bordering China, and it's also bordering South Korea, but the main borders are bordering China. So if there's Canadian, these Canadian Air Force pilots are flying across North Korean borders, they're obviously going to be, on Chinese borders as well. So China's not going to sit there and take it, right? This is it's security at risk. So they're going to fly their own planes and try and get these Canadian airplanes to fly a different way, because they are basically getting into Chinese sovereignty here. So what do they think? China is weak because you can fly across North Korean borders and fly across Chinese borders whenever you like. These UN sanctions are not against China. They might be against North Korea, but use your South Korean borders to fly to North Korea if you have to, but don't fly across Chinese borders. Seriously, such idiots of the day. And they have the cheek to fly on China's sovereignty and China's airspace, and they have the cheek to say that China's the one that's harassing Canada. Why doesn't China fly on Canadia's borders and then see what the Canadians say after that? This is absolutely ridiculous. Seriously. This is the most silliest, idiotic thing I've ever heard in my life, and this is why the Idiot of the Day award goes to Canada. So the final Idiot of the Day award goes to this article, Canada. Canada says China is harassing its aircraft near North Korea.